Sorry, one more.
Hold it up. Not anymore. Just put it on.
We can't tell when you're kidding when you're wearing a mask.
Well, they'll go off in a moment. Still trying to sort the same shit. Yeah. Been here most of the night, so that's a couple hours sleep. Sorry.
Thanks, Chief, for coming out here.
Yeah, we
Thank you
appreciate
guys for
it.
being here. This is important. How do you guys want to begin here?
Yeah, just Chief, I guess tell us what you know happened.
So first of all, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And I know that you guys have requested an interview on this incident. It's tragic. Going to go out with the family, and it was a very, very difficult night for us, for our community. You can imagine with the family. So I want us all to be aware of that. We hear words like tragedy and senseless, but that gets old to me. This just needs to stop, and we need to put people in jail for doing this, and we need to bring our community back together. It's so separated that we need to bring it back to ensure that we can try to solve these type of incidents. But we have a 13-year-old that lost his life last night. He was doing what 13-year-olds do, playing video games in his room. His brothers and sisters were nearby with his family. He's a straight A student. He spends all his time inside his room, family, and today he's not there. But we have to ask ourselves what we want to do about this as a community with the gun violence. This needs to stop. Our community needs to come together. There are so many precursors to violence. Somebody fires a gun, there's something that happened before that. And the police have to be allowed to stop the violence some way. Restricting police investigations, restricting other parts of police activity is difficult. I know there's a balance. I know we want to police with compassion and care, which we do every day. Our community has been occurred. They've been out there with us, and they're supporting the family. So we're all here together with this. I don't have all the answers for you at this point. We know these rounds, or we believe these rounds, were not intended for anybody inside that home. But we need more to confirm that. We don't know who did this yet, but we will. We will catch these criminals, and we'll catch them quick. And so we have a lot of work to do. Our investigators have been out there all night. They haven't had any sleep. We're all out there with our neighborhoods and our residents last night when this occurred. I know many of you didn't get a chance to get out there, but we were there trying to support our police officers in our neighborhood. Today, we will conduct some outreach for the residents, for the family. We have communicated with our school district, so we will bring wellness to the residents there who are concerned about what happened. Wellness for the family the best that we can in terms of support. Our officers were there with under a minute. We had many units out. We can't be everywhere at once. They did provide life-saving efforts for the 13-year-old. However, he died a short time later. So we reached out to the officers as well for what they have to try to do to save life. So that's all I have. I can try to answer questions for you, but it's just very limited in what I can offer right now before I head out.
Who else was in the house?
Family, brothers, sisters, mom, dad. Good family, hardworking family, together.
You mentioned rounds. Does that mean there was more than one bullet that was fired?
Yes, there's more than one.
Do we know how many?
I wouldn't release that right now. Thank you, though.
Do we know where they were fired?
One struck the young man. The rest we'll have to find out where.
No, I mean, do you think that someone was firing in the street? Were they behind in the backyard?
It came from the outside, front yard somewhere. We don't know where. Front of the street, down the street. We don't know how far they might have been. We're looking at video and searching through all the evidence that we have. We've been doing that all night.
Caliber of weapon?
Too early for that. That's almost a ridiculous question right now, James. Caliber of round doesn't matter when we have somebody that we define suspect, but I appreciate your attempt.
Chief, you said that you're barricade around the area,
Yeah, we made sure the neighborhood was protected for the crime scene. We walked, talked to all the residents. We did everything we could to make sure that we provide as much information to residents to support them the best that we can.
I spoke to one gentleman who said there's been the last 2 weeks.
We've been more than a couple. We've had a series of shootings in the last few weeks in the neighborhoods. We've made some arrests. We have seized over 500 weapons since the pandemic began, really from 2 neighborhoods. People's persons or from their vehicles. So we're grabbing these guns from possession directly or from inside the cars. We've been criticized for some of this. And so it's difficult for police to stay confident and stay focused on doing this work because police officers have a responsibility to be visible to prevent crime. But when we're asking officers to try to find the guns, that is not something by law they have to do, but they want to do that to try to stop the violence. So trying to give them the support they need to do this will help us stop some of this violence. So we need this from our community. Again, a very separated community. Tragedies, unfortunately, bring people together. Let's hope this is part of that.
One last question. Is there a gang conflict?
We have a gang conflict going on at this moment between gangs. There are local gang members from in our community. These are socioeconomic issues that we're dealing with. Gangs don't just flourish by themselves. There's a gauntlet that goes through. There's family structure, there's school issues, there's community issues, there's all these issues that come up prior to any violence occurring or people joining the gang. So the socioeconomic issues of what happens has to be addressed long term. As a police department, we made a commitment a couple of years ago to stop raising money for dogs and cars and equipment. All our money is going to youth prevention. Every penny we're raising is going there. We don't need to raise money for anything that we need. What we need to do is make sure we're raising money to have kids given an option to do things. A laptop, Bluetooth, giving all these things are given away as of recently. But even for this young man who's a straight A student, making the best he can, and what happened to him? Bullet comes through that house and strikes him, and he dies in front of his family.
Tell us what school he went to.
Not yet. Notifications and a lot of things are going on, but it's a local Pasadena school district. More of that will come out. I appreciate that question. I know we care from one end to try to give support to the family, but at the same time, we have to try to protect them as long as we can before the media frenzy hits them. And that's my commitment to them to do that. But I do realize you guys do have a commitment as well. So I do respect that.
I think that, and I think one of the things that you kind of hit the nail on the head is that this is a calling to everybody. And I think that's why we are all here, why we were outside the house this morning. I mean, it's devastating. And even you seemed to get a little emotional when you were talking about it. Why do you think this is touching people so much?
Because we care. We all care. We don't have a balance of all things at this time. There's no way to reconcile. We want the violence to stop, but yet we're asking people to stop it. Just don't tell us how. And if we don't like the outcome, we're going to hold you accountable and maybe want you terminated. So there's all these issues that we deal with. What we deal with as a police department, the community, in trying to give as much as we can. This is not the only unfortunate news story that we've had this week for Pasadena. And so these are tragic to try to balance those two things together. I support our council and what they have to do, but at the same time, how do you find balance for people? How do you let them know that you believe in them and that you're here to support them when two things don't make sense? And so this is one that we just have to try to find balance in how we approach in our policing efforts that we do.
This may seem like a silly question.
Let me answer this because you haven't asked them yet, right?
You mentioned that you have wellness at the family, but when the police kill somebody, there's no care for the families that the police kill.
Actually, that's incorrect. We reach out to the families.
All of the families said that you haven't reached out.
That's right. I'll tell you this. Where are you from? What's your name?
Dennis.
Dennis. Every shooting we have, I talk with the families. I invite them in. I show them the video before the media. I do everything. I talk to the moms. They know this. I talk to the grandmothers. I talk to everybody. So either you're not being accurate or I don't know where you're getting your information, but that we do offer it, sir. We do offer it to everybody. We go out there and best we can. We have a wellness unit, and it's unique for us. Our wellness unit club was shot at a couple of weeks ago, and we sent our wellness officers out there for the staff to talk.
Yeah, but that wasn't police shoot. I'm talking about specifically police shoot.
Yes, sir. We do offer it the best we can. Any services that they need, make sure we connect them. Appreciate you.
I have a question. obviously, this may seem like a silly question, but it's not. Have you had a chance yet to talk to the family? I'm just wondering how they're doing.
They are not doing well, and that's about as much as I want to talk about. And it's difficult for them and where they're at. It's been a few years, but they're not used to the neighborhoods. Yes, they're tied to our community.
Is there any surveillance video that you'd be able to?
We're looking at all the available video that we have. There's so much we have to look at because there's hours and hours of it. You have to look at. We don't just look at the time it occurred. We go before and after, and we pull so much from so many places. It takes a lot of time, and so we still have to go back today and knock on doors and try to find them. So it's a lot of work just in that alone. The amount of police work, the investigators do tremendous jobs. I've been doing this for 36 years. I can tell you the amount of work they do today is no comparison to the years past, where it was already hard work then. Now we've added the element of technology and having to look at video, pulling it back, the hours of reviewing it, still doing the interviews. We have an increased amount of officers they have, the amount of personnel that they have, so that's always difficult as well.
Does that mean you have an idea?
No, I have confidence in my investigators. They're tremendous in what they do. We almost always identify who our suspects are. There are times we have murders that people have not been arrested because nobody steps forward because there wasn't video evidence. So many times you might hear, and I talk to mothers who have lost their children to gun violence, and not just gang violence. I talk to mothers, speak with mothers who we've been involved in the loss of their child violence, things that have happened. So I know that they're frustrated at times because they know who committed the act, but nobody's stepping forward. So technology helps us with that with videos and neighborhoods, and we're trying to get there.
Were there any reports of an argument or anything prior to the shooting?
No, not that we know.
Chief,
Anybody in front of in the front yard? Or did you-
We don't know. We're still looking at all that aspect of it. Yes, sir.
2 questions. What can the community do? That's the
Come
first
together,
question.
James, come together, work together. We have to work together. We have to work as one, not separate. I think having unity and holistic approach to violence starts before the police have to take action. This is about prevention first. If we could be everywhere we can, stop violence, we've done our job. If that doesn't work, it leaves us with intervention. The intervention doesn't work, it leaves us with enforcement. And enforcement is what people don't want to see, depending how close you are. If you're close to the violence of where it's happening, you actually want to see more of the enforcement. If you live in other areas, you want to see less of it because you see it on the news in a quick glimpse. And it's important for them to see it, but it's a tough balance to try to find.
Second question, Chief, and it's an uncomfortable one, but what can the city and the department do to ensure that anyone who comes forward with information that their identity will be protected and not revealed as in other investigations?
To ensure it doesn't happen.
You said that you guys will be back out today talking to residents. Has anybody so far said that they saw anything or heard anything at this point?
We're still interviewing people, and there's still a lot of people to interview and re-interview. So we're still putting all that together to find out.
I'm not sure if you answered my question, though, like to protect them, because I know that's a concern. You want the community to come
We
forward.
have to know that we're not going to do it. So make sure that the information is not going to go out.
Right.
Yeah, what they can do, if you go to our website and you touch on command staff, you'll see my picture. Touch on that, and it'll be an email that will come to me, and you can let me know what you want, or what you have to offer, I should say, and I'll make sure it gets connected. I'm willing to do that for our community. John Perez, Perez.
JOHN.
Yes, JOHN, and PEREZ. Yes, absolutely. We get to that point where we know we need to put out a reward to catch somebody. But before we get there, I think it's very, very important that we try to use all the leads, the evidence that we'll find to make sure we run all that out. So some people think that we should put it out right away. That can cause conflicting issues with the investigators. So we want to make sure our investigators have the room to investigate and catch our suspects.
This time of year, we seem to see a lot of people shooting guns out off in the air, New Year's Eve. Do we think it was something like that? I mean, it was 6 o'clock in the afternoon, or do we think this was an actual
We'll know more.
targeted shooting?
We'll know more, but we don't think it was somebody randomly shooting up in the air. held around that. So it's more than that.
Chief, can you talk about Crime Stoppers and how people can get involved with that?
Crime Stoppers is very important to go to Crime Stoppers on the website. Crime Stoppers offers a way for people to submit their information to stay confidential, anonymous, and we're able to work through Crime Stoppers to get the information from our residents or the public, and we can use that for investigating.
Number or website?
Crime Stoppers, it's on the web. Type in LA Crime Stoppers, it'll come up. It's on your phones. You can type it up, and there it is. And for your sites, you can sure people go to that website. But it gives you an opportunity to submit important information for everybody.
How would ShotSpotter have assisted in officers responding to this?
It would tell us exactly where that gunshot came from. There, and that gives us. We also improve the response time because officers driving around. We had officers in the area, and so they instantly get the notification of where it's coming from. So we are not, oftentimes out in the street, you'll hear gunshots. Depending on where you're at, you'll think it might be coming north when it actually came from the south. ShotSpotter reduces that error. It will tell us exactly where it's coming from. Response time is quicker, and we get the information and officers right to the scene that we need.
Can you tell me how many rounds were fired?
More than one.
Less than 10?
We'll have to find that out. We've been increasing policing over the last couple of months, 2-3 months. We have more officers out there. We had specialized units that know how to conduct field investigations. They've been out, and they were out last night, and they were nearby, and they were there with under a minute. Again, we're able to try to save this young man's life with CPR and other ones. So we've reached out to the officers as well.
Is there any reason to believe there was more than one shooter?
We don't have anything yet. We're still looking at all that. Everything's a possibility.
Were there any other gang incidents or traffic stops yesterday?
Yeah, we had LAPD had a vehicle pursuit that right down the street from that one. A murder suspect was arrested in the vehicle right on that further down from that street on the mile. So these are concerns for us in our society. I've been here since the 1980s when we had the gang and drug epidemic. And I see much of the trend trying to head that way. Last year we had the largest crime increase in our history at over 30%. The largest increase before that was 12%. And it's not that from one year to another that we're concerned about it. It's a serious concern for communities. It still remains at relatively low levels. The issue here is you don't want that 30% to continue for 2-3 years. In the 80s, we used to have 30 homicides a year and somebody shot every week in Pasadena. I don't think we could take that type of political turmoil for elected officials and people having to point the finger at whose fault this was, other than the people who are firing the guns. So we are heading into a direction where it's going to take a lot of good minds. The solutions we need to stop violence, it's not an emotional, immediate response, which is what many elected officials across the state or communities want. These require science-based approaches that take multiple years and usually from one chief to hand off the baton to another chief to ensure that we're doing community-based, empirical evidence and also science-based approaches. And we're doing that. Our use of force here in Pasadena, we've dropped it by over 30%. We're using implicit bias, using psychologists to come in to talk to us about force encounters. We are making a difference in our lowest crime that we've seen in the last 2 decades. But it doesn't stop the violence that occurs in moments like this. It takes more than this, and it takes many more years. And so we have to try to ensure that we're passing on the knowledge from one leader to another in a way that makes sense for all of us. None of us should want just knee-jerk reactions. We're seeing what's happened with defunding. We've seen the funding, we have to refund everything at 20-30% more than we defunded it. The evidence is there for it, but recently I think one city put their school police back in place at more money than before. LA is doing the same thing. So we got some serious problems. When we try to solve a problem so hard, so fast, we actually make it worse. It comes back. We see this with all kinds of different social issues. We're trying to tax people more than somebody else. All the evidence is there for us. So we just have to make sure we're doing smart, doing it as a community, and doing our best to support each other.
You mentioned gangs a couple times. This was a gang-related shooting.
We don't know yet, but it sure has all the elements. I guess.
I was going to say most here won't know the community and know the issues, but yesterday, as you may be aware, that there was a threat that there was a potential shooting at Robinson Park, and youth activities were considered being canceled. Is this in any way in relationship to that? Can you make any connection to
Great
those
question,
threats?
James. We don't know, what kind of relationship this may have down the road, but we did get a threat that there'd be a shooting inside of our parks. We had a shooting at that park a few weeks before, and so we had to stop all the practices. There's nothing worse for youth not to give them a place to live during the day.
Have you reached out to the federal government, any agencies to assist you with apprehending? I mean, there's a large swath of guns coming into the city. Is the ATF involved?
Yeah, we reach out to all the federal agencies as often as we can, work with them. We have a team of officers to help us hunt down criminals we know that are wanted for this violence. They help us find them right away. We also use it for many of our investigative aspects when it comes to gun violence and how we do our evidence. So they're part of the holistic picture. The issue every community is dealing with is every community has some level of violence. Ours just right now is higher than most cities around us. Glendale and Pasadena are some similar cities, but the socioeconomic issues are dynamically different.
How do men and women that responded to this processing it and doing? How's
It was
that?
tough. You know what? It was tough last night. I can tell you, it was really tough for our officers. The somber mood of all the officers and the residents and everybody at the command post. But we had a job to do. We have to stay focused. We have to stay focused on grabbing as much information as we can to make sure our investigators can push forward. We don't want to miss anything from last night. We brief to pass the information. Even the smallest thing an officer may come across becomes important for all the investigators at the scene. So it's been tough. It's been very difficult, but nothing near what the family is struggling with and people on that street. So we don't want to make it appear that it's important. We have certain confidence. Families going through. You just have to push through as your police officers to make sure you're working the job the best you can.
How many gangs are there in Pasadena?
There are more than a handful, but they're very historic. They've been around for decades. They come and go. We have new generations. What usually happens, we have new generation of gang members that come in and don't usually communicate well with the veteran gang members. As veteran gang members hit their late 30s and 40s, they want to get out of gangs. They want a job. They're trying to help their kids and they're trying to move in that direction. But the younger ones then come up and they're not listening, and we have this conflict. Most of the conflict involves relationships, money, past incidents that they don't even have all the information to. I worked the units for many years, and it's interesting that the false information they're reacting. They're no different in society how they react.
How do you feel about seeking out injunctions against these gangs to tamper down the violence in your community?
Yeah. Junctions are not the way to go. It's a blanket on a community. I grew up in one of those areas. Having just a blanket and swooping everybody in on a net and asking you questions. I think we're smarter. We're better than that in law enforcement. We have intelligence-led units that are doing much better work than we were before. And that means that we're putting a circle around you. You know that you're the criminal. We think you're the criminal that did that. Society doesn't like that. The public doesn't like that. We're profiling. We're looking at the wrong people. We're innocently, casting others as possible criminals. But we have evidence that we don't share that we pursue on those things. So
you're going to be retiring in about 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
What advice, what will you be handing off to your predecessor to help him or her quell and kind of get in front of some of this violence?
24-hour care. You got to answer the phone calls on this phone. You call me anytime. I'm going to take your call. I'm going to even talk. Dennis, even talk to you. And so there are ways for us to help the community cope with this. The chief has got to be completely involved and completely into this 24/7. This is not a sometimes job. This is a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour job to pretty much know everybody in your community. So I appreciate everybody, and we'll let you guys go. I know you got a lot more things to report on. It's been a difficult night for me and for my department and for our community, and especially for this family. So we'll be here the rest of the day, and that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.